Chosen one, I know you've been asking why it didn't happen, why it didn't work, why the doors slammed shut when your heart was open and ready. You saw the promise, you prepared in faith, you moved in obedience, and still, it slipped through your hands. But what if I told you that the delay you're grieving over was never a denial, but divine protection? What if what you saw as a painful setback was heaven's intervention to spare you from something that would have broken your spirit beyond repair? You see, chosen one, not every no is the enemy's doing. Some are the fingerprints of a loving Father who sees what you cannot. You feel the ache of delay, but God sees the destruction you were being shielded from. There are places you prayed to enter, not realizing they were traps wrapped in glitter. People you longed for, who carried sweet words but bitter motives. You were ready to give your all, but heaven knew they would take and never pour back. So God stepped in, and because He loves you, He broke your heart in the short term to preserve your destiny in the long term. You weren't being overlooked, you were being protected. The rejection didn't mean you weren't enough. It meant the space wasn't worthy of what you carry. That's why it was delayed. That's why it didn't align. Because you, chosen one, are not called to move by impulse, but by anointing. And anything that doesn't align with the anointing must fall away, even if your emotions were all in. You are set apart. You are not for every crowd, every room, or every opportunity. You are chosen for holy ground, and holy ground comes with holy timing. There is a hidden pain in being spiritually set apart. Few talk about it. It's the ache of waiting while others run ahead. It's the sting of doors closing without explanation. It's the torment of watching others celebrate wins while you sit in silence, wondering when your turn will come. But let me tell you something real and raw, chosen one. Your turn isn't just coming, it's being custom made by the hand of God. That's why it's taking time. Heaven doesn't release royalty into chaos. God is not going to answer your prayers in a way that contradicts your calling. He's refining you in the waiting, in every tear you've cried alone, in every quiet night you questioned your value, in every battle no one else knew you were fighting. That delay, it was spiritual training. It was divine stretching. It was heaven's way of preparing your soul to sustain what's ahead, because what's coming will require a version of you that knows how to stand when people walk away, how to pray when doors close, how to trust when timelines collapse. That's the warrior God is building in the delay. I know it hurt, chosen one. I know you wanted it to be different. You thought that relationship was your forever, but it ended. You thought that opportunity was your breakthrough, but it slipped away. You invested so much, gave so much, hoped so much, only to watch it fade. And now the silence is louder than the pain. But don't confuse God's silence with His absence. He was there. He's still there. He's just moving in dimensions you can't see yet, because some protection doesn't look like walls. It looks like unanswered prayers. It looks like sudden endings. It looks like disappointments that leave you breathless. But in the Spirit, those moments are mercy. They are divine shields. God blocked what would have stolen your peace. He delayed what would have compromised your soul. He disappointed your plans so He could protect your purpose. That's what love looks like when you're chosen. It's not always soft, but it's always holy. Let me speak to that storm inside you. the one that's been raging with questions. You're not forgotten. You're not behind. You're not being punished. You're being positioned. The things you called delays are actually divine rearrangements. The detours were rerouting you to destiny. You prayed for God's best, and He took you seriously. So He allowed some good things to fall apart, so great things could be built. Chosen one, hear me in the Spirit. Stop mourning what was never meant to carry your calling. Stop replaying what God has already removed. Stop blaming yourself for doors He intentionally shut. You didn't fail. You followed. You didn't lose. You were led. Even in the confusion, you were walking in obedience. That's the kind of faith that moves heaven. And because of that faith, there's a reward coming that will silence every critic, including the one in your head. This is still your becoming season. It's not the end, it's the forming. You are being shaped in fire, molded in delay, strengthened in stillness. And when it's time, the doors that open won't require striving. They'll recognize your anointing and swing wide, not because of your resume, not because of your efforts, but because you carry what can't be faked. Obedience forged through pain, trust birthed through fire, and a yes that didn't waver when everything fell apart. The delay didn't disqualify you, it qualified you. Because those who rush don't last, but those who are refined can withstand what others collapse under. That's who you're becoming. That's why it's taking time. That's why you're still in waiting, because what's being built in you is not average. It's holy, and heaven doesn't rush holiness. You thought God was punishing you by making you wait, but He was actually protecting you from stepping into something too small. For your calling, He was blocking you from attaching to people who couldn't see your soul. He was keeping you hidden, not because you're unworthy, but because you're too valuable to be mishandled. Your destiny is not behind schedule. It's being preserved. Can you trust that? Even when you don't feel it, even when everything in you wants to give up, can you still believe that your Father sees? That He knows what's ahead, and He loves you too much to let you settle for less than glory? Because here's the truth. Chosen one, delay is not the enemy of destiny. It is often the birthplace of it. And in due time, every painful no will make sense. Every closed door will look like grace. Every tear will be redeemed. God wastes nothing, not even the delays that broke your heart. Chosen one, the weight of waiting can feel unbearable at times, can't it? It's like walking through fog with no clarity in sight, just the haunting echo of "not yet" whispering over your shoulder. You've tried to stay faithful. You've tried to remain hopeful. But some days, the silence of God sounds louder than your prayers. Some nights, the ache of delay feels deeper than rejection. And yet, here you are, still standing, still believing, still carrying the dream He placed in your spirit long before the disappointment arrived. That right there is why you're set apart. You weren't created for shallow waters, chosen one. Your spirit was designed for the deep, and the deeper the calling, the longer the preparation. You don't pour oil on bare rock. You wait until the vessel is ready. That's what God has been doing in this delay. He's been preparing you as a vessel, not just to receive His promise, but to carry it with character, with clarity, with an unwavering trust that was forged in the unseen. You think you've been forgotten, but heaven has been watching over every step. You think you've been abandoned, but angels have been encamped around your waiting. You think you're behind. But what if you're actually being accelerated in ways no timeline could measure? God is not slow, as some understand slowness. He is precise. He is intentional. And when He moves, it will feel like sudden favor, but it will be built on the years of silent faith you cultivated in delay. That's why you couldn't skip this season. That's why the fast track was never an option for you, because you're not being prepared for a moment. You're being shaped for a mantle, and mantles come with warfare. Mantles come with responsibility. Mantles come with weight. You're not just stepping into a blessing, you're stepping into an assignment. And God had to strip away every dependency, every insecurity, every counterfeit path, so that when the promise comes, you'll be ready to steward it, not just enjoy it. I know it's hard to see this now, but the tears you cry in the delay are watering the ground you'll soon walk on. The disappointment didn't destroy your destiny. It deepened it. You've been praying for strength, not realizing God answered by letting certain things fall apart so He could show you how strong you really are in Him. That closed door, that ended friendship, that missed promotion, they weren't punishments. They were exits from what was never going to carry you into your calling. God is not trying to take something from you. He's trying to build something in you. Faith that endures. Trust that doesn't waver. Eyes that see beyond what's visible. A heart that beats with heaven even when earth feels distant. He's been cultivating in you spiritual maturity that can't be rushed, because where you're going, surface level faith won't survive. Emotional highs won't carry you. Only rooted, anchored, Spirit-led faith will stand. That's why the delay was necessary. It taught you how to worship when the music stopped. It trained you to pray when your heart was numb. It forced you to let go of needing validation from others and lean into the only voice that matters, His. You lost people, but you found your identity. You lost timelines, but you gained eternity. And that, chosen one, is priceless. There is a reason you feel so different. There is a reason the crowds don't understand you. The opportunities don't stick. The plans always seem to fall apart right before the breakthrough. It's because you're not like the rest. You carry something that hasn't been fully revealed yet. Your delay is not a pause. It's a spiritual unveiling. God is carefully pulling back the veil, layer by layer, preparing to reveal you at the appointed time, not when you think you're ready, not when others finally clap for you, but when heaven says now. That kind of unveiling can't be rushed. You've been hidden for a purpose, hidden from premature platforms, hidden from wrong alignments, hidden from sabotage and spiritual attacks that were sent to derail you before you even began. Don't despise the hiding. Don't curse the delay. It's been holy protection. Some of the people who walked away, if they had stayed, they would have pulled you out of alignment. Some of the places you tried to push your way into, if you had entered them, they would have polluted your purity and diluted your discernment. So God delayed you, not because you weren't ready in your own eyes, but because your spirit wasn't finished marinating in the oil of His presence. You were almost there, but not quite. Almost strong, but not yet whole. Almost ready, but still too eager to please people. Instead of obeying God, so He waited. He let things fall apart. He allowed the silence. He permitted the stripping. And yes, it hurt. Yes, it felt like abandonment. Yes, you cried yourself to sleep, wondering if you did something wrong. But deep down, you knew. It wasn't punishment, it was preparation. Because when you're truly chosen, God will not let you walk into promise until your character can carry it. He loves you too much to elevate a version of you that's still dependent on applause. He won't let success destroy what the wilderness was designed to heal. And that's the kind of love you've been living under. Fierce, holy, protective, sometimes painful, but always purposeful. So don't call it a setback anymore. Don't call it rejection. Start calling it protection. Start calling it refinement. Start thanking God for the doors that didn't open, because He knows the ones that will, and they're coming soon, with glory, with favor, with peace. Not the kind the world gives, but the kind that only comes when you've been tried by fire and come out gold. You're almost there, chosen one, closer than you realize. And when it happens, it won't be like before. This time, it will last. This time, it will fit. This time, it will bear fruit. Because it wasn't birthed out of striving, it was birthed out of surrender. And now, heaven is watching, waiting, listening for your heart to whisper, not, "Why is it taking so long?" but, "Lord, thank you for keeping me hidden until the time is right." Chosen one, the enemy tried to convince you that God forgot. He whispered in your weary moments, "If you were really chosen, why the silence? Why the delay?" He twisted your waiting season into a weapon, hoping to pierce your faith, to poison your trust. And for a moment, maybe more than one, you wondered if you misunderstood the call, if maybe you were never chosen in the first place. But hear me now, with the weight of the Spirit behind every word. You were not wrong. The anointing on your life is real. The calling is irrevocable. The delay didn't void it, it verified it. Because hell doesn't fight what isn't holy. The attacks, the delays, the disappointments, they're proof that something divine is resting on your life. If it was about comfort, you would have been untouched. But because it's about calling, you've been crushed, pressed, broken, refined, not for shame, not for punishment, but for power, for clarity, for spiritual authority that cannot be bought or borrowed. The oil on your life costs. It costs isolation. It costs waiting. It costs warfare. You've paid with tears, with nights of silence where all you had was your breath and your belief. And heaven saw every single one of those moments. Not one tear has been wasted. Not 1 hour of waiting has gone unseen. You are not behind. You are in process. This kind of preparation doesn't come with applause. It comes with loneliness. You've outgrown old circles, but the new ones haven't arrived. That's the space in between. And it's holy. That's the cocoon before the flight. That's where heaven severs what can't go with you. And that's why you feel so heavy, because you're carrying things God is calling you to release. You can't take bitterness into the promise. You can't take offense, or unforgiveness, or self-doubt. The delay has been detox, a spiritual purging. God has been gutting you of everything that would sabotage the next season. And though it feels like punishment, it's actually mercy. Because where you're going, chosen one, there will be no room for double-mindedness, no time to question your worth, no space for needing constant affirmation. You must know who you are before the door opens. Not once it does. Before the opportunity arrives. Before the people come. Before the favor floods. You must walk in the room knowing you carry heaven. Not because of who you are, but because of whose you are. And this delay, this sacred stretch of silence, has been the classroom of that identity. You've learned how to encourage yourself when no one else did. You've learned how to wait without watching the clock. You've learned how to release what you loved because God whispered, "It's not aligned." That's maturity. That's surrender. That's spiritual strength. You used to beg God to speed it up. Now you're starting to understand why He slowed it down. Because what He's building in you isn't shallow success, it's sustained purpose. And that kind of glory can't be microwaved. Do you feel it now? Chosen one, the weight lifting, the perspective shifting. Can you sense the Spirit showing you the delay was never a detour? It was design. Your disappointment was heaven's construction zone. The rubble of broken expectations was the soil where God planted the real dream. Not the one you made in your mind, but the one He etched into your soul long before you knew how to ask for it. You're not forgotten. You're being fashioned. There's a crown on your name, and heaven's timing is never rushed. So don't compare your pace. Don't envy those who seem ahead. You're not late. You're arriving precisely when the kingdom needs you. You're not missing out. You're being saved from what was never meant for you. You're not less than. You're simply being preserved for more. And when it comes, when the breakthrough finally bursts through the cloud cover, you won't just walk into it. You'll recognize it because it will feel like home, like alignment, like heaven echoing every yes you said in the dark. This time, it won't come with confusion. It will come with confirmation, and you'll know, deep in your spirit, that this is what the waiting was for. This is what the pain was making room for. This is what the heartbreak was protecting. This is what the delay was designing. A destiny that's not diluted by desperation, but defined by divine timing. So keep your head lifted, chosen one. Not out of pride, but because you've seen the bottom, and you're still breathing, still believing, still burning with a light the darkness couldn't extinguish. You are not the same person who entered this delay. You've been transformed, transfigured, taught by the Spirit, and when the moment comes, you won't even need to announce yourself. The room will recognize the glory you carry. The doors will open, not because you demanded them, but because heaven sent you. You'll walk through, not wondering if you belong, but knowing you were born for this. That's why it was delayed. That's why it didn't happen when you wanted, because God wasn't preparing the promise. He was preparing you. Chosen one, I need you to understand something that your heart might already suspect, but your mind hasn't fully grasped yet. The delay wasn't passive. It was strategic. Heaven doesn't stall without purpose. God doesn't pause a chosen vessel without weaving eternity into the waiting. You may have seen a months slip by, even years, without the breakthrough you were praying for. But while you were pacing, wondering, crying, and surrendering, heaven was orchestrating. You thought nothing was happening, but everything was happening. The invisible hand of God was moving behind the curtain, shifting circumstances, removing people whose presence would have cost you your peace, aligning resources you didn't even know you'd need. That relationship that ended out of nowhere, that job that rejected you last minute, that project that collapsed after you gave it your all, none of it was coincidence. All of it was divine redirection. Because chosen one, when you carry a sacred purpose, God won't let you attach yourself to things that can't hold it. And sometimes, the only way to protect you is to break your heart, not to crush you, but to awaken you, not to abandon you, but to extract you, because you were starting to settle. You were starting to compromise. You were about to say yes to something that looked like favor, but smelled like distraction in the spirit. So the delay came, swift, quiet, painful, and it left you confused. But God was rescuing you from the subtle seduction of the wrong almost, the wrong good enough, the wrong this will do. He heard your prayers for the real thing, and He refused to let you build on sand when He's promised you rock. That's protection. That's love on another level. And I know it's hard to see it that way when your plans are bleeding out at your feet, when the thing you hoped for now lives only in your memories. But faith isn't faith when it only clings to what you can see. Faith is forged in the flames of no, not yet, and trust me anyway. And that's what you've been doing. That's why you're still chosen. Because anyone can worship in the fulfillment, but only the marked ones worship in the famine. Only the truly anointed ones lift up praise with empty hands and broken timelines. And you did that. You stayed. You waited. You didn't curse the process, though your flesh wanted to. You didn't walk away from God, though the silence nearly broke you. And that kind of obedience, chosen one, it unlocks supernatural things. There's a reward stored up for the ones who didn't rush, who didn't manipulate outcomes, who didn't try to create their own doors, but waited for the one God Himself carved out. That's you. You've been faithful in the cave, in the shadows, in the seasons where it felt like God was favoring everyone but you. But can I tell you the truth? You were never overlooked. You were hidden. And there's a difference. Overlooked is what the world sees. Hidden is what heaven ordains. You weren't invisible. You were being incubated, like Joseph in the pit, like David in the field, like Moses in the wilderness, set apart, protected, unseen by man, but fully seen by God. And when the time is right, and not a moment sooner, God will lift the veil. He will say, now. And suddenly, what looked like delay will be revealed as destiny. The things you cried over will be the very things you thank Him for. The pain you thought disqualified you will be the very evidence of your preparation. The wilderness you hated will be the place you learned how to hear Him clearly. And when He speaks again, you'll recognize His voice because you became familiar with it in the silence. Chosen one, this delay has given you spiritual ears. You no longer chase every opportunity. You discern now. You no longer crave crowds. You crave clarity. You no longer try to fit in. You know you were never meant to. You walk differently now. You speak with a weight that wasn't there before. You carry a stillness that only comes from wrestling with God and surviving it. That's what makes you dangerous to the enemy. You've been through what should have broken you, but instead of bitterness, you found boldness. Instead of quitting, you leaned in. And now you're walking into a season that your past self wouldn't have survived, but your current self was built for. This is what the delay was shaping, a version of you that doesn't need the world's applause, because you've already heard heaven's approval. A version of you that doesn't panic when doors close, because you've learned to knock on the one that only God can open. A version of you that no longer fears being misunderstood, because you're finally in tune with the one who understands it all. That's what makes this next chapter so different. It's not about finally getting what you wanted. It's about becoming who you were always meant to be. And that's the greatest reward of all. Because what if, chosen one, the real blessing wasn't the thing you were waiting for? What if it was the version of you that emerged from the wait? Chosen one, let that question sit with you for a moment. What if the wait wasn't just to receive the blessing, but to become the blessing? What if every tear, every delay, every door that didn't open was God chiseling away everything in you that wasn't aligned with the weight of glory He's about to place on your life? You see, you thought you were waiting for something to arrive, but the truth is, heaven was waiting on you to arise. And now, you are. You are no longer the same person who once begged God to move faster. You don't walk like you used to. You don't speak like you used to. You don't believe like you used to. Something sacred has shifted inside of you. That's why it's felt so strange lately. That's why nothing normal feels fulfilling anymore. You've outgrown the old wineskins, chosen one. You've shed the former self. The cocoon has cracked. And though the wings feel fragile, they're real. They're ready. You are ready. And not because everything is perfect, not because the plan is clear, not because all the pain has passed, but because something inside you has finally surrendered. You're no longer chasing what God didn't promise. You're no longer clinging to who He didn't assign. You're no longer fighting for places He never anointed. You've accepted the wilderness as your teacher. You've embraced the silence as His presence. You've let the fire refine, not define you. And now you move differently. You no longer ask, God, why is it taking so long? Instead, you whisper, God, thank you for not giving it to me before I was ready. That shift, that holy, humble shift, is the sign that the wait has not been wasted. It was worship. Every time you said yes to God, when your emotions screamed no, that was worship. Every time you chose trust over control, that was worship. Every time you let something die because it didn't carry His breath, that was worship. You've built an altar in the delay. You've made room for the Holy Spirit, not just in your prayers, but in your posture. And now heaven is responding, not because you earned it, not because you've been perfect, but because your faith endured. You didn't give up in the in-between. You didn't abandon the process when it got too painful. You stayed. You wept, but you stayed. You questioned, but you stayed. You doubted, but you stayed. And that kind of faith, it moves the heart of God. You were never being punished. You were being planted. And now the roots have taken hold, quietly, deeply, invisibly. And the time of budding is near, not because you're striving, but because the soil has done its job. You let the process do what it was meant to do, build you from the inside out. You've been rooted in character, anchored in obedience, watered by tears. And that is the kind of soil that sustains harvest. So, don't be surprised when things begin to bloom suddenly. Don't panic when the momentum hits fast. It will feel like acceleration, but it's really manifestation, not of a dream you fabricated, but of a destiny you were always born for. And when it comes, don't shrink back. Don't apologize for it. Don't feel guilty for the blessing that was forged in private pain. Because the ones who watched you break don't know what it cost you to be whole. The ones who whispered, "Where's their God now?" will witness the fire of His faithfulness blaze in your life. The very places that were soaked with your disappointment will become altars of His glory, and the voice that once trembled in doubt will become a trumpet of deliverance. That's what's ahead, chosen one. That's what the delay was designing. So stand firm now, not in fear, but in reverence. You are not just walking into a new season. You're walking in as a new creation. This is why the old couldn't come with you. This is why the timelines didn't work. This is why they walked away. This is why it took longer. This is why you felt like the forgotten one. Because God was writing something eternal in your silence. And what's eternal can never be rushed. You've become a dwelling place for His Spirit. You've become a vessel He can trust. You've become the answer to someone else's prayer. And all because you didn't give up in the waiting. Chosen one, this was never just about delay. It was divine preparation. It was God, in His fierce love, saying, I will not let you settle for less than my glory. So, take a deep breath. Lift your head. Straighten your spine. The season is shifting. And this time, this appointed, sacred, unshakable time, it won't be disappointment disguised as protection. It will be glory revealed in divine manifestation. Chosen one, do you feel that trembling in your spirit? That's not anxiety. That's not fear. That's the deep stirrings of destiny waking up inside you. The same spirit that hovered over the deep at the beginning of creation is now hovering over your life, whispering, it's time. Not the time you imagined, not the timeline you begged for, but the time heaven has always known. There is a sacred unveiling happening now. Quiet, unseen, but irreversible. And it was made possible by the delay. Yes, the delay broke you, but only to rebuild you. It emptied you, but only to fill you with something eternal. It stripped away your plans, your pride, your sense of control, so that all that remained was surrender, pure, unshaken, real. And from that place of surrender, something holy has emerged. Chosen one, there's a fire in your bones now. Not the kind that burns you out, but the kind that keeps you lit when the world goes dark. You're not fueled by applause anymore. You're not moved by affirmation. You're not swayed by the crowd. You've been rewired to walk with God, even when the path is lonely, even when the outcome is unclear. That's how you know you're ready, because you no longer need the promise to believe the promiser. You no longer need a visible sign to trust an invisible God. And that, chosen one, is power. It's spiritual maturity. It's the posture of the remnant. It's the spirit of those God can entrust with the heavy things, the weighty things, the callings that cost, the assignments that hurt before they heal, the burdens that birth revival, the pain that produces oil. That's what's on your life now. Oil. Not the kind that's cheap and flashy, but the kind that's been pressed in silence. That's why you speak with a weight now. That's why people feel the Spirit when you open your mouth. That's why your prayers shake rooms. Not because they're loud, but because they're real. They come from a place of brokenness turned into boldness. And let me say this clearly. The ones who hurt you in the delay, the ones who misunderstood you, misused you, mocked your faith, walked away from your anointing, they didn't disqualify you. They sharpened you. They became instruments in God's hands to reveal what was still wounded, what was still weak, what was still needing healing. And in that revelation, you found strength. You found God. You found identity. They didn't break you. They built you. So bless them. Release them. Forgive them, not for their sake, but for your release. Because where you're going, you cannot afford to carry the weight of old offense. You cannot pour oil through a vessel still cracked with bitterness. You've been healed for a reason. You've been purified for a purpose. And the next door that opens isn't just for your blessing, it's for kingdom impact. You've been trusted with delay, so you can be trusted with a destiny. And now you understand. Had it come when you wanted it, it would have crushed you. Had it arrived when you were still people-pleasing, still doubting, still needing proof, you would have mishandled it, not out of rebellion, but out of unpreparedness. And because God loves you too much to set you up for collapse, He allowed delay to grow you up in the Spirit. And now, chosen one, you are full grown. You're no longer asking for crumbs of affirmation. You're no longer looking around for signs, because the sign is you. You are the evidence that God is faithful. You are the walking prophecy. You are the promise that endured the pruning. You've become a mirror of what heaven can do when someone refuses to quit in the wilderness. And now that wilderness is behind you, the cloud is shifting, the fire is moving, and the same God who led you into the hidden place is now about to call you into the open, not for vanity, not for validation, but for victory, for the glory of His name. So rise, chosen one, not with noise, but with knowing, not with hype, but with holiness, not to prove anything, but to fulfill everything He whispered to you in the dark. The delay was never a denial. It was always a divine setup for a destiny too weighty to be rushed. And now, it's here. Chosen one, you need to understand this. There's a sound in the Spirit that only the delayed can hear. It's not loud, but it's deep. Not flashy, but it's holy. It's the sound of destiny groaning to be born. The sound of purpose cracking open from the inside. The sound of heaven announcing, "Prepare the way. The one who endured is rising." And that sound, chosen one, is coming from you. Your delay was not dead time. It was sacred time, an incubation of identity, a burial of false attachments, a slow divine stripping until only what was eternal remained. You were not waiting in vain. You were being sanctified in secret, because the anointing on your life is not for shallow waters. It's for deep seas, and deep seas require deep roots. You couldn't be rushed like others. You couldn't build on surface. You had to be carved out, hollowed, cleansed from the inside, so that when God poured the oil, there would be space to hold it. That's why others could sprint while you were forced to be still. That's why they seemed to flourish while you were being emptied, because your assignment requires depth, and depth takes time. Don't envy their pace. You're not called to walk their road. You were chosen to carry something rare, and rare things require rare processes. You've walked through the kind of wilderness that breaks people, but you didn't break. You bent, you cried, but you didn't curse. You trembled, but you didn't turn back. And in doing so, you became dangerous to hell, because the enemy's greatest weapon was never the delay. It was the lie that came with it, that you missed your moment, that you lost your chance, that you were forgotten by God. But you didn't buy it. Not fully. Something in you, no matter how small, kept believing, kept hoping, kept whispering, "God, I don't understand, but I trust you anyway." That whisper shook the heavens, because when a chosen one worships in the wait, when they praise with empty hands, when they surrender without answers, that worship becomes warfare. That praise becomes prophecy. That obedience becomes access to promises that others never even knew existed. And now, Now you're not just waiting, you're walking. Slow at first, careful, a bit hesitant, because when you've been delayed long enough, even the right door can feel unfamiliar. But the Spirit is with you, and He's saying, don't question this. Don't second guess this. I brought you here. I did this. And you'll know it's Him. Because what He opens will not require striving. You won't have to chase it. You won't have to convince it. You won't have to shrink yourself or betray your convictions to keep it. What's from God will fit peacefully, powerfully, prophetically. That's how you'll know. The delay was protection, so that when this door opened, you would no longer be desperate. You'd be discerning. You'd no longer settle. You'd stand. You'd no longer beg. You'd bless. Because you know what it cost you to get here. You've tasted the silence of God and still chose to sing. You've sat in the ache of unanswered prayers and still chose to kneel. You've stood before closed doors and still chose to trust. And that trust, that's the soil where the next season will bloom. You're not just stepping into a new level. You're stepping into divine alignment. Things are going to start making sense. Not all at once, but piece by piece. What confused you last year will confirm you this year. What broke you in the last season will bless you in this one. What felt like abandonment will be revealed as an act of radical love. Because hindsight in the Spirit is holy. It shows you how your Father was present, even when He was silent. It shows you that the delays weren't walls. They were wings. Wings that grew stronger every time you chose not to run. Wings that now carry the weight of revelation. Wings that no longer flap in panic, but glide in peace. Chosen one, you are ready. Not because you feel like it, but because heaven says so. You were born for such a time as this. You were delayed for such a door as this. You were protected for such a promise as this. So walk forward, eyes open, spirit sensitive, heart surrendered, and know the God who delayed you is the same God who is about to deliver you. Chosen one, I want you to hear this with your whole spirit. Nothing was wasted. Not the years that felt silent, not the prayers that seemed unanswered, not the people who walked away, not even the versions of yourself you had to grieve. Every ounce of it was woven into the holy tapestry of your becoming. What felt like disappointment was divine design. What looked like ruin was resurrection soil. You were not just delayed, you were developed. God was doing in you what couldn't be done on stages, in crowds, or in comfort. He was forming a foundation that could carry weight, because some callings aren't heavy with public glory. They're heavy with private obedience. And that's what you learned in the waiting: to obey without applause, to serve without spotlight, to grow without validation. You learned to live on word alone. You no longer move by impulse. You move by instruction. You don't chase open doors. You wait for a whispered direction. You don't cling to what's leaving. You discern what's being removed. That kind of clarity, it's rare. That kind of strength, it's refined. That kind of discernment, it's not taught in classrooms. It's birthed through delay. So, now when others see you rising, when they hear the fire in your voice or feel the peace in your presence, they'll call it favor, but you'll know it's not just favor, it's fruit. It's the harvest of holy surrender. It's what grows when someone says, "Yes, Lord," in seasons that make no sense. You've died 1,000 quiet deaths to get here. Died to control, died to timelines, died to needing to be understood. And every death produced something eternal, something unshakable, something the enemy can't steal, because it wasn't given by man, it was breathed by God. And this is why the delay was necessary, because if the door had opened too soon, you would have brought your wounds with you. You would have still needed people to affirm you. You would have carried insecurity like armor and pride like protection. But God healed you in hiddenness. He affirmed you in isolation. He taught you who you are in the quiet, so that no noise could redefine you in the future. That's what the delay protected, your identity. That's what the wilderness restored, your authority. That's what the silence cultivated, your discernment. And now, you can no longer be manipulated by flattery. You can no longer be baited by urgency. You can no longer be blinded by temporary platforms, because you've seen the throne, you've encountered the fire, you've touched the hem of glory in the midnight hours of despair, and now you carry something sacred. That's what terrifies the enemy. Not your title, not your talent, but your intimacy with God, your ability to walk away from what glitters because you recognize what's holy, your refusal to settle because your spirit has tasted the real thing. You are not hungry for fame. You're hungry for the face of God. You're not chasing influence. You're chasing His voice. And that's why you're ready, because the delay taught you to lose everything except your hunger. And now, you're the kind of vessel heaven can trust. The kind that doesn't leak when praised. The kind that doesn't crack under pressure. The kind that doesn't compare or compete. Because you know that divine timing cannot be threatened by human movement. So when you walk into what's next, and yes, it's coming, walk slowly. Walk with reverence. Walk like someone who knows what it cost to stand here. You are not here by luck. You are not here because you finally figured it out. You are here because you waited well. You were refined, rebuilt, recommissioned. You are not the version of you who once doubted if they were truly chosen. You know now. You know what it took. You know what you lost. You know who left. You know the nights when you thought the silence would kill you. And yet, you're still here, still chosen, still anointed, still held, still burning. That's the miracle. That's the evidence. That's the fruit of the delay. So don't ever be ashamed of how long it took. Let it be your testimony, because when people ask you, how did you get here? You won't say strategy. You'll say surrender. You won't say connections. You'll say the cross. You won't say timing. You'll say trust. You are the proof that waiting on the Lord will never be in vain. And this is just the beginning. Chosen one, lean in close. Let your heart catch this. The very things that once made you weep in secret are about to become the reasons you worship in public. The places you thought were graves are becoming gardens. The disappointments that left you speechless are about to give birth to declarations of divine fulfillment. Not because you forced anything, but because you waited in the fire and trusted the refiner. This is your resurrection season, not just of circumstances, but of you. The version of you that was buried in delay is now rising. The one with wisdom that only comes through weeping. The one with discernment that only comes from detours. The one with faith not built in pews, but in pain. The one who no longer fears the weight, because they've seen what God does with it. You've come too far now to shrink, too deep to be shallow, too yielded to ever go back to striving. You don't even desire what you once did. That's how you know the delay changed you. It rewired your longings. It sanctified your ambitions. It purified your prayers. You no longer cry out for what feels good. You cry out for what's holy. You don't just want breakthrough. You want obedience. You don't just want the platform. You want the posture. And that posture, chosen one, is why the time has come. Because you're no longer waiting from a place of fear. You're waiting from a place of rest. You're not hoping like a beggar. You're expecting like a child. You're not trying to make it happen anymore. You've surrendered to the one who already has. And now heaven is responding. Quietly, then suddenly. Slowly, then all at once. Not to reward your performance, but to honor your posture. The way you held onto God with shaking hands. The way you whispered yes through gritted teeth. The way you stayed available even when you were emotionally unavailable. That posture became an altar. And now God is filling it with fire. Get ready, because the things you thought you lost are coming back. Redeemed, restored, resurrected. Not the same as before, not recycled, but reborn. New relationships, built on truth and mutual purpose. New opportunities, forged in alignment. New vision, clear and heaven-breathed. And most of all, a new you. One who knows how to wait. One who knows what's worth the cost. One who doesn't need applause to obey. One who has oil in their lamp and fire in their bones. And this time, when the door opens, you won't hesitate, because you'll recognize the rhythm of God. You'll feel it in your spirit. You won't need to overthink or analyze. Your soul will know, this is the moment the waiting prepared you for. This is the space where all your secret sacrifices will make sense. This is the season where everything comes full circle. And when that happens, chosen one, walk humbly. Don't flaunt the favor. Steward it. Don't flex the blessing. Protect it. Don't rush to speak. Listen, because the same God who brought you here is still the God you'll need in the next season. And just because the waiting has ended doesn't mean the refining has. Favor doesn't cancel formation. It requires more of it. So stay low. Stay yielded. Stay close to the fire. Remember the wilderness, not to dwell in the pain, but to carry the power. Let it keep you grounded. Let it remind you that glory doesn't start on stages. It starts in secret. You carry a quiet authority now. Chosen one. It doesn't shout. It doesn't strive. It doesn't prove. It simply is. Because when you've truly waited on God, you don't need to convince anyone you're chosen. The fruit does all the talking, and your fruit is about to blossom in front of those who doubted you, dismissed you, and disqualified you. But don't let it turn to pride. Let it turn to praise. Because the truth is, you never made it through the delay on your own. It was grace, unseen, unshakable, ever present. It caught you when you fell. It covered you when you couldn't pray. It carried you when you were too tired to stand. And now, it's about to crown you with joy, with peace, with purpose. So don't resist what's next. Don't fear the open door. Don't sabotage the blessing with small thinking. You've been stretched so that you could be trusted. You've been delayed so that you could be delivered. You've been hidden so that when you're revealed, it's undeniable that God did it. This is not your doing. This is His unveiling. Chosen one, breathe this in. Slow, sacred, surrendered. You made it through the fog of confusion, through the sting of unanswered prayers, through the ache of delay that felt like denial. Through the silence that stretched so long, you questioned if heaven still heard you. But even when your voice trembled, even when your hope flickered, you stayed. And now, the Holy Spirit is saying, "Well done." Not because you had it all together, not because you never wavered, but because you never walked away. And that kind of faith, the kind that limps but keeps moving, the kind that cries but still worships, the kind that doesn't understand but still trusts, it is precious in the sight of God. You see, chosen one, this was never about the delay itself. It was about what the delay was delivering. God wasn't withholding anything from you. He was preserving something in you. The delay became the sacred womb of your transformation, and now you're not just stepping into promise. You're stepping in as a completely transformed vessel. That's the true miracle. Not the job, not the relationship, not the opportunity. The real breakthrough was you, becoming the kind of person who no longer needs the world's timeline to feel purposeful. You've detached from the idol of arrival. You've stopped measuring your value by visible progress. You've learned to rest in the cadence of God's whisper. That's real maturity. That's spiritual rest. That's what the wilderness was birthing all along. You don't need to rush anymore. You don't need to compete. You don't need to prove anything to anyone, not even to yourself. You are chosen. You've been chosen since before the foundations of the earth. And now, you walk in that truth, not with arrogance, but with quiet assurance. That's the sound of someone who's been refined. You don't need applause. You carry authority. You don't chase platforms. You carry presence. You don't strive to be seen. You shine because the fire within can no longer be hidden. Chosen one, the delay has done its work. It stripped you, yes, but it also strengthened you. It humbled you, yes, but it also anointed you. It broke things off you that would have sabotaged your future. And it reminded you, again and again, that you were never alone, even when you felt forsaken. Now that you stand here, on the edge of the promise, don't look back with regret. Look back with reverence. Every valley, every closed door, every slow morning where you had to push yourself to believe again, it all mattered. It all counted. Heaven recorded every yes, whispered through tears, every seed sown in obscurity, every act of obedience that no one clapped for. And now the harvest is not just coming, it's being released. Slowly, steadily, sacredly. Because what God is doing now isn't just for you. It's for the generations that will eat from your obedience. Your children will walk through doors you prayed open. Your friends will find courage in your consistency. Your community will feel the ripple of your faithfulness. That's legacy. That's why the delay mattered. Because God wasn't just developing your timeline. He was writing a testimony that can't be stolen, imitated, or fabricated. And now the testimony has a voice. You've become the voice for someone else's silence. You've become the answer to someone else's wilderness. You've become the light for someone else's delay. So speak, chosen one, not from bitterness, but from breakthrough, not from wounds, but from wisdom, not from fear, but from fire. Tell the truth that the delay nearly broke you, but God was in the breaking. Tell the truth that you questioned everything, but God never stopped calling you. Tell the truth that you almost let go, but something deep inside said, "Hold on just a little longer." And now, look at you, still here, still chosen, still rising. You are living, breathing evidence that God is faithful. Not fast, not always obvious, but unfailingly faithful. You are proof that waiting is not wasted. That silence does not mean absence. That protection often comes disguised as disappointment. So walk in peace now. You're no longer in a holding pattern. You're in holy alignment. The doors that open from this point forward are not random. They are righteous. The relationships that come will not distract. They will partner with your purpose. The blessings that fall will not flatter. They will fortify you. Because this time, it's not just a season change. It's a spiritual coronation. Heaven is placing a mantle on you, not one you earned, but one you were refined to carry. So take it, wear it with humility, carry it with integrity, steward it with fear of the Lord, and never forget, the delay was not punishment, it was preparation. The disappointment was not rejection, it was redirection. And the pain? It was heaven whispering, I'm still with you, I'm still writing. Trust me, I'm not done yet. Chosen one, he's not done yet. He's only just beginning.